Tonight, the American economy.
Our job is not done until we get everybody back to work.
One more push for another coronavirus relief package before the election, even as large corporations lay off thousands. Plus, election 2020. It's not just the presidency at stake. A look at the possibility of tipping the balance of power at the U.S. Capitol. And
you've seen Iranians contest their authoritarianism by contesting faith itself.
A surprising shift away from Islam in Iran. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. A new wave of job losses here in America. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. Thanks for joining us. With the CARES Act now expired, more Americans are asking for help. New numbers out today show 837,000 applied for jobless benefits last week.
And major employers are signaling future layoffs if there's no movement in Washington. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy reports on the outlook with us now. Ben, many blame the political stalemate for these tough times going on right now.
Yeah, John and Jenny, you're right. Right now, there are nearly 12 million people out of work. And as you guys were talking about, many are blaming Congress for not getting together on a deal on the next coronavirus relief package.
We're hopeful that we can reach agreement because the needs of the American people are so great.
Those needs being felt today as airlines added more than 40,000 employees to the list of furloughed or laid off after federal funding ran out at midnight.
It's very sad to see what's happening in the airline industry. I met a few of the airline workers on a flight who would lose their job, and their job loss, 19,000 people facing layoffs, is because of Nancy Pelosi.
We have concerns about a sufficient amount of money to address unemployment insurance needs of the American people.
Democrats now proposing a $2.2 trillion coronavirus relief package, which includes a $600 federal supplement per week in unemployment insurance, $436 billion in aid for state and local governments, and another round of stimulus checks.
The good news is the Speaker has come down from her $3.4 trillion deal. If there's a fair compromise, we're prepared to do it. He's very focused on wanting to make sure that all the people who have been impacted by COVID, no fault of their own, we're delivering relief. As I've said before, our job is not done until we get everybody back to work, and we're going to keep trying.
In addition to airlines, the hospitality industry is floundering. Disney laid off 28,000 workers, which includes their cruise line. The cruise industry's no-sale order, set to expire today, was extended until the end of October.
You have a significant density of people in a confined space and unclear how optimal the ventilation is, and that's a recipe for COVID-19 spread.
We are hearing that Pelosi and Mnuchin talked for an hour today. Airlines say they will recall their employees if a deal is reached. The $2.2 trillion package is expected to pass Congress, but not the Senate, because Republicans have an issue with the high price tag. John, Jenna?
All right, White House correspondent Ben Kennedy, thank you. And here with us now is Mark Hamrick, Washington Bureau Chief and Senior Economic Analyst at Bankrate. Mark, it's good to have you with us. Looking at unemployment, applications were slightly down last week, but now we see these massive layoffs from companies like American Airlines, Disney, and others. Mark, help us make sense of this.
Sure. And when you're referencing that number, as you should, Jenna, we're talking about the total of all programs administered by the 50 states, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and the District of Columbia. But there's another set of numbers that is the claims arising from the CARES Act, the Pandemic Unemployment Assurance Program. That's another 600,000 or so, leading to a total of nearly 1.5 million new claims. This is obviously historically elevated. Tomorrow, we'll get a new employment report. That'll be for the month of September. That's expected to show very modest improvement from August level, down from 8.4 to perhaps the low 8% level. But let's remember, it was just a year ago that the unemployment rate went to a nearly 50-year low of 3.5%. So we're about 5% above that, and that just shows you what a difference a year can make.
It shows definitely what a difference a year can make, and COVID has made. Mark, looking at the bigger picture, is there any way to forecast what unemployment might look like a year from now? Will the country have recovered, do you think?
I appreciate the question because we just published our new quarterly economist survey at bankrate.com. We call it the economic indicator. And the consensus of the economists is that, remember, we're now at 8.4%. That unemployment rate will come down to about 7% a year from now. That's not as much improvement as we'd like to see. And we hope that they're wrong. We hope we'll see much better improvement in the economy between now and then. But they're also looking for something that would give us only the recovery or restoration of about 4.5 million jobs between now and then. As you referenced at the outset, we recovered fewer than half of the 22 million jobs that were lost earlier this year. So all of this suggests, if the best guesses are nearly correct, that we're still going to be digging out for months to come.
Mark, there are some 11th hour talks about another relief package before the November election. What do you think is the likelihood both sides would actually come to an agreement?
Well, I think as the package said, I think the House and the White House could work out something probably much easier than what has already been the case. Problem really is that the Senate is unwilling to go along, and because we have a system of government that requires that, it appears that that's going to be a tall order, so to speak, to get the Senate to go along. So I think right now the odds are against a final passage of another round of legislation, and that's sad to say.
Mark, final question here with about a half minute left. We have some good news on the economic front. President Trump signed the funding measure to avoid a government shutdown. It only goes through mid-December. Your thoughts here?
This is sort of doing the bare minimum. Instead of the 12 appropriations measures that would typically be required to fund the government for the next year, the can's been kicked once again. This is the game that we've come to understand in Washington. Gets us through December 11th, and then this is a game that they'll be playing all over again.
A game that we'll just have to wait and see. Mark Hamrick with Bankrate, thank you so much for your insights.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
Well, to the campaign trail, could South Carolina go blue this November? New polling shows Joe Biden gaining ground there. The Quinnipiac poll finding a statistical tie with President Trump at 48% support among likely voters and Biden 47%. A big gain for the nominee who was down 6 points just 2 weeks ago. And notable because a Democratic presidential hopeful hasn't won South Carolina in more than 40 years. And the president might not be the only Republican in trouble there. Senator Lindsey Graham's bid for re-election is facing extreme pressure from Democratic challenger Jamie Harrison. The same Quinnipiac poll finding the men tied at 48% among likely voters. A South Carolina Democrat hasn't been elected to the Senate since 1998, so the race could have a big impact on the balance of power on Capitol Hill.
Joining us now, CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, Republicans are on the defense in the Senate. They have more seats up for grabs than Democrats. How many seats can Republicans afford to lose but still maintain control of the Senate?
3, John. If they lose 4, it becomes in control of Democrats. Now, just to be clear, the reason I said 3 to begin with, just to do the math, right, Republicans are up 53-47 in the Senate. If you lose 3, you'd be at 50-50, all right? At that point, it depends who wins the White House, because obviously either Vice President Mike Pence or Vice President Kamala Harris will break the tie. So bottom line is, if Democrats can pick up 4 seats, they're going to win the Senate regardless of who wins the White House, and that's the way this is going to work.
David, what do you think the likelihood of that is?
Well, it's a pretty strong likelihood. You know, I got to put it above 70%, maybe 65 or so. Look, there are 10 key battleground states. There's a lot of battleground states, but when it comes to the Senate, 10 key battleground states, and the Democrat candidate is actually leading or tied in 9 of those 10 against the Republicans. The Republicans only have 1 safe seat out of those 10 battleground states. The Democrat is leading in 9 of those 10. So, you know, you got like Martha McSally in Arizona and Tom Tillis in North Carolina, Susan Collins in Maine, Cory Gardner in Colorado. Those are the 4 that I think could potentially flip. And if those flip, it's time for Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.
David, to the House, it seems like a steep hill to climb, but does the GOP have a shot at winning enough seats to change the power structure in the lower chamber?
Well, John, here's a visual for you. They have a shot. Look, they need about 20 seats. It's going to be tough. So I don't know if that's really going to happen. Once again, most likely not. As a matter of fact, the Republicans at this point have a better chance probably of keeping the Senate barely. I think they're going to lose a few seats for sure, but I think they'll have a better chance of keeping the Senate at this point than actually winning back the House. I mean, that's going to be tough. And part of the reason is there's only 26 toss-up races in the House. I mean, you got about 190 solid Democrat seats. You got about 154 or so solid Republican seats. You put about 26 in the middle of toss-up. There's some lean left and lean right. So when you have 26 races and you need to win 20 of those, that's tough.
David, of those House races, are there any that you find especially interesting or that you're keeping a close eye on?
Well, you know, House races are really hard to predict, and so it's tough. But I will say this: I'm going to be watching on election night overall what happens in Texas, because I think Texas is interesting as it relates to the racial makeup of the state, about the political leans of the state. It kind of reminds me of Virginia back in the day before Virginia went blue, and it was kind of going light purple. I'm not suggesting Texas is going blue. But it does seem to be trending that way. So I think a lot of those House races in Texas is something I'm going to be keeping my eye on.
All right, the Lone Star State. Well, David, we will leave it there. It's great to get your insights. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
The church and the president. When we come back, we look at a divide among evangelicals exposed after Tuesday's testy debate.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN News Watch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN News Watch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today. Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're going to be late for the grand opening. My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members, free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
And welcome back. The political divide between older and younger generations of evangelicals appears to be growing. A voter study group survey found 80% of white evangelicals over the age of 45 support President Trump, but just 60% of their younger counterparts feel the same. Younger evangelicals also tend to be more supportive of things like immigration, LGBTQ rights, and fighting climate change.
And Tuesday's debate highlighted some of these generational differences. Jack Jenkins of Religion News Service has written about it, and he joins us now. Jack, it's good to see you. Why the divide between younger and older evangelicals? And maybe more importantly, is it enough to make a difference at the polls?
Well, we should point out to begin with that younger evangelicals, younger white evangelicals still do in the majority support Trump and then, in the majority support Republicans. But as you pointed out, there is a significant statistical difference between them and their older compatriots. And, when I spoke to experts about this, they talked about how younger evangelicals simply grew up in a different world than their older parents and grandparents. They tended to grow up around groups of people who are not like them, whether it's different racial groups or different sexualities. Or just different identities, political and otherwise. And because of that, experts say that their form of politics is less, quote unquote, combative. And so they tend to bristle at the politics that's used by President Trump. And so that divide, also falls along, issue lines, like, for instance, climate change is an issue that younger white evangelicals tend to be more concerned about than their older compatriots. And the same thing, as you noted, with immigration reform. But, it's more of a trend. It's more of a shift in another direction that will have a lot of repercussions in future elections. How much of an effect it'll have this go-round remains to be seen. But it's notable that the reaction to Donald Trump's debate performance on Tuesday night was a lot of younger evangelicals speaking out and expressing frustration or disgust with the president's performance on Tuesday evening.
And Jack, real quickly, what specifically were they unhappy with about the president's performance?
Two main things. One, you heard a lot of people refer to his actions as bullying or bully-ish. Just the idea of talking over Joe Biden quite frequently seemed to rub a lot of younger evangelicals the wrong way. And there was a lot of conversation about what looked like Trump's difficulty to condemn white nationalism. And regardless of how people feel about that in general, younger white evangelicals who spoke up on Tuesday night felt that Trump didn't do an adequate enough job of condemning white supremacy and condemning white nationalism in particular. You even had J.D. Greer, head of the Southern Baptist Convention, tweet out yesterday a thinly veiled reference to what seemed to be Trump's that moment during the debate. Talking about J.D. Greer saying that condemning white supremacy should be an easy thing to do.
Switching gears a little bit to the other campaign, the Biden campaign is out with a 7-figure TV ad buy targeting Catholics and evangelicals. What can you tell us about that, Jack?
Right. So they just announced this today. Apparently, the Biden campaign has 3 different major ads, 2 that are on television that will be geared towards Catholic and evangelical voters that tout both Biden's Catholic background and his Catholic faith, as well as how his faith has sustained him during moments of grief and loss. For instance, the loss of his first wife and child, and then later Beau Biden more recently. They also have a radio ad that they intend to air on Christian radio stations that talks about, that has a parishioner who goes to church with Biden talking about knowing him from Mass. And again, this is going to be in 14 states because this is part of the Biden's campaign strategy. They really do feel that they can chip away at Trump's lock on religious voters, particularly conservative religious voters. And they're not trying to win them all, but if they can win enough of them, they think that if they target them with these sorts of ads, they might be able to eke out a victory come Election Day.
And Jack, I read earlier in one of those articles that in one of those ads, he's actually quoting scripture. In just the few seconds we have left, any realistic shot that he can peel off faith voters who've traditionally supported conservatives, or in this case, Donald Trump?
I think there is a small fracturing that occurs even among white evangelicals that has been occurring really since the rise of Trump. I think that we do see some people who are disenfranchised or feel disenchanted with the Trump administration. There's a stronger chance that they might not show up to vote as opposed to voting for Biden. But I think from Biden's perspective, if he just peels off 1 or 2% of those in states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, and Wisconsin, that might be enough to secure a victory.
All right. Jack Jenkins, we're out of time. Jack Jenkins with Religion News Service. Always great to have you on Faith Nation. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
And up next, the claim more than 99% of Iranians are Shiite Muslims. The reality, a vastly different story. We'll explain.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world-class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path. Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Nepali Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Welcome back. A seismic shift. That's what a stunning new survey from Iran reveals. It uncovers what Iranians really believe about Islam and how they feel about their own government.
And it's not what you may think. Here's CBN's George Thomas.
For 14 days in June, 2 Dutch professors interviewed more than 50,000 Iranians online for an unprecedented survey covering topics from faith to politics to religious life. The authors say they discovered a huge shift that should fundamentally change how we look at Iran today. One major standout from Professors Poiman Tamina Arab and Amar Maliki is that despite Iran's census claims that 99.5% of the population is Shiite Islam, only 32% of their respondents identified as such. The next largest group are the nones at 22%, which led the authors to conclude that Iranians are abandoning religion for secularism.
Broadly speaking, this survey is important because it puts data behind the largely non-empirical argument that analysts have been forced to deal with, which is that Iranian society is less religious. This survey, this data proves that Iranian society is exceptionally less religious.
Approximately half of the population reported losing their religion. 60% said they do not pray anymore. Younger people reported higher levels of dissatisfaction with religion, and an overwhelming number of respondents were critical of authorities using strict Islamic laws to govern daily life. For example, 72% of those surveyed opposed the law mandating all women to wear a hijab, the Islamic veil covering. And when the authors dug a little deeper on questions central to that faith, even less numbers believed in the core tenets of Shia Islam. Only 37% believed in life after death. 30% believed in heaven and hell. An even lower number, 25%, believed in the coming of their Islamic savior known as the Mahdi or 12th Imam.
All of these trends, the pushback on the hijab, the lack of belief in the coming of the Mahdi, the lack of a willingness to identify with Shiism, the willingness to identify with other faiths, are all a result of politics in the past 40 years of the Iranian government. And as the Islamic Republic has tried to shove religion down the throat of Iranians to mask their authoritarian grasp on power, you've seen Iranians contest their authoritarianism by contesting faith itself.
The survey also revealed that as Islam diminishes, Christianity is growing. 1.5% of those surveyed identified themselves as Christian.
And that is compared to about 30 years ago being less than 1%. That less than 1%, everybody thought it was less than 0.5%.
Mike Ansari of Mohabbat TV, a ministry that broadcasts the gospel into Iran, tells CBN News the survey is significant because it lends credence to what mission groups have been saying for years.
This data is important because it's indicative of the fact that in the country of Iran, in the midst of persecution and Islamic rule, Iranians are turning their back to their faith to their institutional faith and receiving Christianity as a new faith.
Iran is one of the most dangerous places for Christians and other minority faith groups. Non-Muslims are often arrested or severely tortured for sharing or practicing their faith. Yet, in a sign of changing times, the survey found that 41% of respondents believed all religions should have the right to public proselytizing, and around 54% said it was a good idea for their children to learn about other faiths in school. George Thomas, CBN News.
Well, happy birthday, Mr. President. The history-making life of Jimmy Carter. That's next.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
Finally tonight, the country's oldest living president adds another candle to his cake.
That's right. Today, Jimmy Carter celebrates his 96th birthday. The 39th president of the United States comes from hard-working roots. He was a naval officer turned peanut farmer before throwing his hat into the political ring. Besides serving as president, Carter is known for his unending humanitarian work and, most importantly, his service to God. To this day, he faithfully serves as a Sunday school teacher at Maranatha Baptist Church in Plains, Georgia. President Carter and his wife, Rosalind, are celebrating the day together at their home.
Oh, happy birthday, Mr. President. He looks great.
Well, that's going to do it for tonight's Faith Nation.
Have a great evening.